Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. And today we are going to analyze of course, the India-England Test match at Chepauk. So not the result we wanted, definitely, but obviously lots to talk about. And to start off with, what went wrong? Was it the highs of GABA followed by a hangover and then not being able to adjust to the pitch? Was it the selection issue? That's something which we need to discuss. Should Kuldeep had been there? And instead of Nadeem, was the team selection wrong? Did we get our spin attack wrong? Something which we need to discuss. And most importantly, the Chepauk pitch. What can we say about it? It was definitely an issue for the first 2 days. And I guess we were all pretty much frustrated in the first 2 days when Joe Root was plundering all those runs. And then, of course, we have our notorious top order failure. It's been happening for quite a while now. And the first innings failure ultimately cost us the match, one can say. So let's see, let's go one by one. I'll throw the floor open to you. And so what do you think, guys? Where do we start? Team selection, our favorite topic?
First of all, I think when we do a show like this with close friends like you, with it's great to have you guys. So there's a smile on the face. It's purely only because of that, guys. The result of the match, as has been discussed through the last few days, terribly disappointing. But I think a lot of us saw this coming, to be very honest. And I think that after the high of GABA, when we got back here, we started off actually on the back foot. England, if you recollect, played 2 solid tests in Sri Lanka at Galle. They got first class spin experience and pace experience in those 2 tests. So when they reached Chepauk, they were actually
and also the heat and humidity.
Oh, absolutely. So England was actually the home team, and India, on the contrary,
exactly,
had played in Australia on sort of different sort of pitches. I wouldn't say bouncy all the time, different sort of pitches, different environment. They came to Chennai. They took a couple of days to get started. So I think in a way it was ironic that India was the home away team in a way and England was the home team. So I think that was a factor.
And most importantly, what about Kuldeep Yadav? That's something which I want to discuss. And that's something which disappointed me personally. Okay, the handling of the Kuldeep Yadav issue and his selection and his lack of selection. So I would like to, what do you think, guys? Should Kuldeep have played?
So in hindsight, we know that it was the wrong decision, right? But before the match started, I think I could see why they made the decision. I may not agree with it. There is a certain logic to it, right? Jadeja being unfit or being injured, we should say, not really unfit, meant that we had to play somebody who could bowl spin and bat. That was Washington Sundar. But then that meant that there is no left arm spinner. Then who becomes the left arm spinner? And then do you play Kuldeep because he still spins it into the right hander, or do you play someone else? And that someone else was going to be someone else who couldn't play, and therefore Shahbaz Nadeem came in, right? Who was going to play instead of Shahbaz Nadeem? Who did Shahbaz Nadeem?
Akshar Patel was supposed to be there in the team, but actually what happened, what I got to know was that Akshar Patel was supposed to be the all-rounder. In the last minute, he got injured, and that's when they had to drop Kuldeep and get Washington. Something like that happened because initially the 3 spinners were supposed to be Kuldeep, Akshar, and Ashwin, but because Akshar got injured, they had to get in Washington, and that's why Kuldeep had to miss out because they had to have a left-arm spinner. So that was the thought process behind it.
So now you see the lack of other people's batting ability is affecting Kuldeep's chances, like exactly what you had said had happened in Australia. Now, if that keeps happening, you can't really blame Kuldeep, as our team management like saying Kuldeep ka time aayega. So time aayega, fans like you and me, we keep waiting. That's all we can do. In hindsight, playing Nadeem, for us fans, it was a no-brainer to play Kuldeep and Washington along with Ashwin. That is what our original team was, but that was not the original team of the Indian team management, and hence why you can see suddenly Shahbaz Nadeem came in and Kuldeep was dropped. So for us, it looks like they dropped Kuldeep for Shahbaz Nadeem, but that is not how it happened.
Yes.
So another key point is, now again referring back to our previous conversation, our first conversation, right? During which we had said that, sorry, on these test match pitches in India, everybody keeps talking about spin and how important spin is going to be, how important the ability to play spin well is going to be. No doubt it is important. What was the massive difference between the two teams? I can point two factors. Well, one of the things was the conditions, obviously, and the toss. We will talk about that. The second most important factor was that Joe Root innings. The third most important factor, I'm not really going to rank them, but a third factor, not necessarily in terms of importance, is that spell by Jimmy Anderson. How good was that? So there are these three things, right? And we can debate about what is more important, what contributed more to our loss, right? So I mean, Salim, you always have things to say about the pitch and the curator, don't you? Go on.
Yeah, look, I honestly, I mean, there's a lot spoken about the pitch. Typically Indian fans, even the analyst community, always looks for a victim to blame. So here it was the victims in no necessarily order were the pitch, Shahbaz Nadeem, and some people are pointing out Ajinkya Rahane and Rohit Sharma, right? So in that order, we'll come to that in a while, which I think was not so bad. I mean, I distinctly remember there were some balls which took off. Nadeem also got a couple of balls, I clearly remember, which cut the batsman into half. Washington bowled a bouncer of a good length. Ashwin got two doosras late in the second day or third day, something like that. Ishant got the ball to move. I feel it was more a case of our bowlers, except Ishant and Ashwin in the second innings. Ishant was the only one, if you recollect, they showed a match, pitch map of where he has pitched the ball. There was one particular zone, 44% and 45%, almost 90% of the balls he bowled in the shoebox, literally. So I think it was lack of consistency. And so, a lot of people blame the pitch. And also, if you see the way Joe Root used some of the bowlers, very smartly he has used them, which, Kohli may not have used quite well, right? I'll give you two examples. One is on day 5, if you notice, he did not start with Jimmy. Jimmy Anderson was brought in the 26th over, which was effectively the 15th or 16th over of the day, when the ball was just decently hard enough for to get that kind of movement, and also sufficiently old enough for it to reverse. Had he bought Jimmy, let's say in the start of the day, maybe he would have tired him off, right, without getting that reverse. And had he got him a little too late, then it would have been too late and the ball would have been too soft for reverse to happen. So I think usage of bowlers was also a very critical factor.
Usage of bowlers, right? That thing is where I think the role of the team analysts, statisticians becomes so important, right? That majority of the wickets were actually falling within that first, 30-35 over period. After that, the ball was becoming too old, irrespective of the pitch conditions. The ball wasn't really doing anything in the air, off the surface. Well, off the surface, if the pitch was what it was on late day 4 and early day 5, any ball was going to do something, right? So therefore, it was very important to try and understand from Joe Root's point of view when to bring in Jimmy Anderson. Now, in hindsight, it is a master, brilliant decision in hindsight, right? Because he bowled so well. He always bowls very well. But also, one of the other most important things why I think England went that way was to ensure that there was spin at least from one side, right? If they have spin from one side, who bowls from the other side is a key question. And as we had called out in our first video, that Jack Leach is going to be the key, right? So Jack Leach was tonked for, I don't know, 5 or 6, how many sixes by Rishabh Pant. Joe Root still backed him as his number 1 spinner. He started with Jack Leach, didn't he? So it was...
No, absolutely. And if you see, that's a great point you're making. If you talk about usage of bowlers, I frustratingly remember on day 1, when Ishant, Bumrah and Ashwin had built sufficient pressure. In fact, if you recollect, Ishant went at less than 2 runs per over for a prolonged period.
Yeah.
What does Kohli do? He brings in 2, I would call them debutants in a way, right? He brings in 2 new guys like Washington and Nadeem, both bowling in tandem. there was a 12-over spell between, I think, the 66th to 77th over, where both of them bowled 12 overs and they leaked 55 runs. For me, really, that was the game. That was one place where we lost the game. Second place where we actually lost the game, we discussed this as well, is when we got to 78 for 4 in our first innings. I mean, we got decent batting conditions. It was not so bad. Ideally, we should have been like 250 for 4 or 260 for 4, right? And the fact that we even crossed 300 is because of those bonus runs that we got. I would call them bonus runs from Washington and in a way bonus runs from Pant. I mean, we had no business. Ideally, we should have not even crossed 220, 230, given how our top order batted.
So you had said that there are three things, right? So there was the Shahbaz Nadeem factor. There was the pitch. What was the third thing that you had said? The usage of bowlers, was it?
Usage of bowlers and even
and the top order collapse as well.
The collapse, and also again small things. Only when you watch. I mean, Test cricket is boring for a lot of people. Nobody usually watches the whole thing. But I was watching in bits and pieces. Like for example, usage of close-in fielders, right? I mean, the way Joe Root would place his close-in fielders, sometimes he would deliberately leave gaps open. I just felt that Kohli was a little bit slow on those things. I'll give you another example. When Pant was going good in the second innings, he placed a fielder at short cover, right? Because he sort of saw that there's a chance that when Anderson pitches one up, he can hold up and he can play on the up. That's exactly what happened. Pant got out that way. And and Kohli's dismissal, for example, in the first innings, Rohan, you're the technical guy.
Yeah.
You want to just talk us through that?
Kohli's So one of the key differences between how India bowled in the first innings and how England bowled in the first innings was the fact that England did not necessarily stick to the leg side theory, right? Virat Kohli's dismissal was a classic off-spinner's dismissal, right? He looped it up, swerved it away, ball pitches, a puff of dust comes up slightly, ball bites off the surface, comes in. Virat Kohli is stretching on his front foot, play outside the off stump, and then the ball takes the inside edge, lobs up to forward short leg. That is a classic off-spinner's dismissal that you would associate Indian Test match conditions to be. Did we bowl any such deliveries? Not in the first innings. Ashwin was still stuck. I wouldn't call it stuck. Maybe that was the team's strategy, right? To still choke runs down the leg side. It doesn't always work. It doesn't work in all conditions, right? Not necessarily when the pitch is like it was on day one and even early day two, right? Especially the way Joe Root was setting himself up. Again, the flex, not necessarily only in his knees. Now today I actually have a bat, and I can actually also show you why those two dismissals of the bowling of Jimmy Anderson, those two key, cartwheeling stumps, stumps cartwheeling, why it was so special and so exhilarating, even if we are Indian fans and we were on the receiving end, right? So I'm just going to turn this around so that I can go to that side. Right. So let's just adjust this a little bit. There you go. So Jimmy Anderson was actually bowling so close to the stumps, wasn't he? He was bowling from very close to the stumps, okay, and he was angling the ball away from the right hander. So he was so close to the stumps, and the angle was going away. Okay, so as a batsman, your instinctive reaction is you're there, okay, and you're setting up for the ball to be this side. So your back lift is actually going back so that you are looking to play here on the offside. Okay, so instinctively, your shoulder closes a bit. Okay, your foot goes towards the line of the ball. Okay, you're already committed on the front foot. So once the ball starts tailing back in, you don't have any time to move your foot from here to here. You can't do that. So then you can't even move your head because you're following the ball with your eyes. The only adjustment that you can make is with your bat. Okay? Your shoulder opens up a bit, your bat comes down at a slight angle. Now let's take this down a bit. You can see that your bat comes down instead of coming down like this, okay? Like this, it comes down at a slight angle and you play slightly around, okay? Not this much maybe a little bit more to say instead of there, your bat is coming a little bit here, okay? When you are expecting the ball to be here, so your bat should have come there, but because of the swing, you can't move your foot, your bat comes there and you are trying to adjust to the ball. Okay, so the movement wasn't this drastic, right? The players of the caliber of Ajinkya Rahane and Shubman Gill, who we all know are phenomenal. Even they were beaten by this. So why did that happen? It happened because of these primary reasons, right? Jimmy Anderson, extremely skilled, right? He has bowled, I don't know, tens of thousands of deliveries in international cricket. I think after he has turned 30, he has already picked up, 380 odd wickets after the age of 30. He has bowled, 20,000 deliveries after the age of 30. Imagine how many times he would have practiced that, right? Imagine how many times he would have practiced swinging the ball in by angling the ball away and then getting it to tail in. As a batsman, you feel that the ball is angled away. It is going this way, but the seam is facing towards leg slip. So the ball is going to go there. This sort of a thing also Ishant Sharma was doing in his spell in the first innings when he was batting. When he was bowling from around the wicket. Sorry, go on.
No, absolutely. I remember it was a pleasant surprise in the 170th over. Ishant came and got those two, balls sneaking in, cartwheelings. It was our version of cartwheeling. Unfortunately, it was a little slow. I also don't want to get into too much of, a lot of us, we're doing so much of Rona Dhona. While we do that, this is also one of those tests where I, as a fan, am a little confused, Rohan and Abhishek, on what should be our game plan going forward. I mean, Rohit and Ajinkya clearly look shaky to me. It looks like we just have Ishant, Bumrah and Ashwin essentially as our key wicket takers, and Jadeja is ruled out. So what do you think we should do for the next match?
So that's where my question again comes back. So where do we go with Kuldeep Yadav? Like what we explained in the early part of the show was the point was or a point which Rohan mentioned was to get a left arm spinner, basically a finger spinner, would take the ball away from the right-handed batsman. But I've been repeatedly, this has been an Indian selection policy since God knows when. I mean, I always feel that any test match, home, away, wherever, you select your 4 best bowlers. Okay, your 5th bowler has to be an all-rounder based on the situation, based on if it's seaming conditions, you get a fast bowling all-rounder. If it is Asian conditions, you get a spin bowling all-rounder. Okay, so that's what your 5th bowler should be. But your 4 bowlers should be strike bowlers who can win you matches and who are capable enough to get 5 fours. Okay, may not necessarily they will get it, but they should be at least good enough to get it. So amongst these 4 bowlers, you have to select your 4 best bowlers. Don't select the team based on what style he bowls. Okay, so in that case, this concept of left arm spinner being ineffective against left-handers, or a spinner who takes the ball away from the right-hand batsman should be preferred. That I find it highly debatable, because in that case, Nathan Lyon should not be bowling to right-handers ever, because he doesn't take the ball away from the right-hander. So why do we not question that ever?
Yeah, I think the hangover the Indian team had was because this Embuldenia in Sri Lanka bowled very well.
I agree on that. Yes,
they just thought that let's get a duplicate version of that here.
Yeah, and that doesn't work.
Absolutely, it doesn't work, and
that doesn't work in terms for a well-prepared team like England. You can't just say, okay, I need a left-arm spinner, I put in anyone there. That you cannot do. You have to see the quality of the bowler. If you didn't have Kuldeep Yadav sitting in the bench, the guy has got a 5-wicket haul and it's just his last test match he played. I mean, how can you not? How can you just ignore that? I mean, he's got
also,
five fours in Australia. You've got 5 fours in India. He's hardly put a foot wrong in his 6-test career. 24 wickets in 6 tests. So these are very old-fashioned selection policies, which India has been having right since the beginning, right since God knows when, since Ajit Wadekar's time when Ajit Wadekar was the coach. So these have to change. You have to back your 4 best bowlers.
Yeah. So I think this whole concept of taking the ball away from the bat was also reinforced after 2012 when Monty Panesar did that to us. Right? He got so many wickets, back-to-back wickets off right-handers. Taking the ball away from the bat at speed with his really long fingers and his extraordinary ability, right? So that is where these things have come into, into the Indian team selection policy, if you like.
That's what you play according to your strengths, not the opposition's weakness or through history. That's what my point of contention. Obviously, if Jadeja is there, I would play Jadeja. I would, without blinking an eyelid, I'm going to play Jadeja. But we don't have Jadeja right now.
No, okay, so going by your sequence, Abhishek, so let's assume the 3 pacers or the 2 pacers are Ishant and Bumrah. Then you got Ashwin. These 3 are locked in. I hope Ashwin is fit enough because he bowled, as you saw, he's bowled 56 overs.
Very much.
Last was 54 overs in Adelaide 2014, right?
And so don't forget he batted for a while as well. So that's going to spoil his back.
So we lock in Kuldeep as a 4th best bowler.
Absolutely, I feel so.
I think we do, yeah.
And therefore, I just think we've again put ourselves in a spot because of Washington Sundar's 3 really good batting performances. Does he fit in as our 5th bowler, come all-rounder? I would pick him purely for his batting, to be very honest.
Yeah.
Yes, I think.
Yeah. So as you were discussing as well, that an all-rounder in your team should either be able to pick purely as a batsman or purely as a bowler first, and then whatever is their secondary skill becomes a bonus, right? We cannot afford to see Washington Sundar's runs as being a bonus if we are seeing his bowling as being inadequate. Okay, so if we have to keep on playing Washington Sundar, and I think we should, purely because of his batting, then he becomes a batting all-rounder, filling in that 5th bowler's position. Ben Stokes fits into the England plan of things across conditions purely as a batsman first. He's a very, very capable bowler, but he's a 5th bowler. He doesn't necessarily have to bowl when not required. That is how, if we look at Washington Sundar, he fits into the plans, and given his recent form with the bat and clearly his excellent ability, he is a no-brainer when Jadeja is injured currently.
And I just want to point out Washington Sundar's bowling. He might be Washington Sundar's wickets column might be 0, but don't forget he got the edge, and India didn't have any reviews left. That is why he didn't get that wicket. And
Rohit
Sharma dropped a sitter.
And Rohit Sharma dropped a sitter. Yeah.
The sitter. He would have had 2 wickets. He would have had 2 wickets to show for his bowling effort. So don't ignore him as a bowler. And not only that, I've seen that whenever there is 3 spinners bowling, there's always the 3rd spinner is going to be underbowled. And that's exactly what happened to Washington Sundar. So if you just push him, and if you say that, okay, the captain has to give him some confidence, he can pick up wickets in test matches as well. So, he did. For all practical purposes, he did pick up 2 wickets in the test. Okay, it was not his fault that the wickets column is 0. So don't write him off.
That drop by Rohit Sharma in the first innings, right? The sitter that he dropped. I think he dropped it, and I think he will also agree, because the ball he thought was high enough for him to be taking as a reverse cup like this. Okay,
cup,
it wasn't that high. It was dipping. He would have easily taken it like this. I think he was expecting the ball to have been hit much better than it was. It was just lobbed up, and it was on its way down when he was going to catch it. The ball hit here before he could close his fingers. It had already dropped. that was a
I just,
very, very, very bad drop, right? And
I just feel
there are
it was.
positives and negatives in the way people reacted to it. He was
That's what I
smiling
was
about
just
it.
going to say.
He can't really
It
do.
was a hangover of the 550 total, Rohan. I just feel so. The
No, also,
score was 550 at that time.
so guys, okay, that's on the bowling side. I think that the path looks clear, and I think just to wrap up the point on Washington, the fact that he's from Chennai, I think just gives him that little extra edge.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
if this
think he,
wasn't
he
Chennai, they
deserves
may
a
not have considered him. What about batsmen, guys? I mean, like any changes?
very,
I don't
very.
honestly see any changes happening in the batting order.
Even I don't see any changes, but definitely we have to. Obviously, Rahane, we cannot do anything about it. He's just an Australia series winning captain right now, so that's something which probably it's going to be a bit too harsh right now. But Rohit, it's been a while because other than scoring since he started opening, other than the first two test matches against South Africa where he got tons of runs, I think 2 centuries and one double century, I think. After that, he hasn't. He's not been in the runs as an opener. Two test matches, 5 innings now continuously, 6 innings in fact. So 6 innings, just 155 failures. I think Mayank is too good a player to be sitting in the bench. I feel so. So I don't know. I think we can give him one more test, but definitely this should be thought about. And I think Mayank is a very good player of spin bowling. If you've like Rohit is a guy who likes to. He's got very good horizontal shots, so he's more adept to on playing on true wickets. Whereas Mayank, I think, is a better player of spin bowling. What I feel.
Mayank
So
averages over 90 in Indian Test.
90 in India. Yeah,
Yeah,
correct. So
it's
overall,
brilliant.
he's a better player on these dusty pitches, and Rohit is a better player on true wickets. So that could tilt the favor in favor of Mayank, but I don't see.
I don't see
In
in
India, it
the
doesn't work like that. In India, it doesn't work like that. It's not so
in
easy.
the power
That's all
equation.
what
I
I can
mean,
say.
Mayank hasn't
Yeah.
really done himself any favors. While his average is good, I think all of us, and I'm sure even the team management, has a recency bias. Somehow, people like Mayank and Shaw have fallen off the radar. And this combination of Gill and Rohit somehow gives that. I mean, Gill, of course, has been fantastic. I think they will persist with Gill and Rohit at least for the next two tests for sure. I mean, if Rohit fails in the next two tests, four innings, then maybe the last one we might change. To wrap things up, Abhishek, any predictions, any change in predictions, any WTC implications for us there?
WTC is it's very straightforward. There's no point thinking. We just have to win 2 test matches, and I mean we have to win the series. You win the series, you are in the WTC final. You don't, you're not. Simple equation is that. Win the
Well,
series by any
how
margin, you're going
easily,
to be there in the WTC finals.
remember the cartwheel conversation. Jimmy Anderson made the stumps cartwheel. India came cartwheeling down from number 1 to number 4. That is exactly what has happened, right?
Yes,
After
yes.
this
And
this one match, England has gone to the top, cartwheeling up. India has come cartwheeling down.
Let,
and
let
somehow
me
Jimmy
let,
Anderson, he is your
let
man.
me let me rub it in further. I read a statistic from Andrew Zoltzman that after 2008, when Makhaya Nitini got two top order batsmen bowled in the same way,
yeah, right.
and Lakshman, this is the only time after 2008, right, that
That
top six, two
two top
batsmen
order
have been
batsmen have
bowled.
got
Of
bowled
course, the other one
in
that
the
we
same over.
painfully remember is Eden Gardens, Shoaib Akhtar getting Tendulkar.
Yeah,
And
that was yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
So,
yeah.
but
fingers
It
crossed for
was
the.
truly,
brilliant.
I'm basically, I'm now right now beginning to worry about these dusty wickets, which was supposedly a home advantage at one time. But I just fear that we don't have if we have the bowlers to take the 20 wickets on these pitches. We're better off on true wickets. I think Motera will probably favor us more than on true wickets where you can field 3 seamers and 2 spinners. This 3+2 attack. That's something which those sort of conditions is probably, as an Indian fan, I would favor more than
See,
these dust bowls because
that is where the Indian team balance will again be tested. If Hardik isn't fit enough to bowl, who will,
Shardul Thakur is there. Shardul Thakur.
right?
He's
But who does
67 and
Shardul
7
Thakur
wickets.
replace? Who does Shardul Thakur
One of
replace?
the spinners. One of the spinners.
Right. But
One
then
of the
you are
spinners.
left with only two spinners, the second spinner being Washington Sundar. Therefore,
Yes,
you are
yes.
effectively playing with one spinner and three fast bowlers, with your fifth
Yeah,
bowler
that's
being your reserve bowler,
yes.
currently being Washington Sundar. So it's all
So
about balance as well, right?
you see, if we go to Motera at 1-1 or maybe still 1-0 down, then we have to take the risks, don't we have to, Rohan? Because then Ashwin you have to consider as an all-rounder, because I consider Ashwin as an all-rounder, especially his improved batting over the last 3 test matches. So I consider him as an all-rounder along with that Shardul. Because see, if you see in the home test, if in on pitches like Chepauk, there are 2 things which you have to have. One is of course spin bowling. You have to have spinner like Ashwin, and the second is of course reverse swing. And we have got 2 of the best reverse swing bowlers who we are missing. That's Umesh Yadav and Mohammad Shami,
I mean,
and
yeah.
along with Jadeja. So those 3 are killer blows. We could sustain those blows in Australia because the replacements could come and deliver on true pitches. But on these pitches, those are specialized skills. Nobody will have that.
Well,
What Jadeja and these
Siraj
3
maybe.
bowlers could be, yes. But I'm kind of happy that Siraj didn't need to bowl on such a pitch, because I fear that it will spoil his confidence. Maybe let him be
Well, he will
in
learn.
his 5
He will
wicket.
learn, right? He will learn.
Yeah.
At least he's
Probably,
not going to get,
yes,
get
yes.
injured.
That's fine, because I think Ishan, I think, deserved the test match. So no complaints about that.
So fingers crossed, guys. Hopefully, we're able to overcome all these starting troubles like we seem to have in
Yeah, yeah.
so many series, right? 2017 Australia series, we lost the first one.
Yes, yes, of
Recently, we lost
course.
Gabba. Even this one we've
But
lost.
there you are. What happened there? We lost on a square turner in Pune. Okay. And then in Dharamshala in Australian English conditions, or other Australian conditions, we won. So things are changing. I mean, we have to accept that.
See,
See,
but
when the
one of the
conditions are
reasons-
Australian, sorry, I was just going to say, when the conditions are Aussie-like, you should play Kuldeep Yadav, right?
Yeah, that's what happened in Dharamshala. That's where all those fiascos started with. Remember Salim? That's where Kuldeep Yadav made his debut in Dharamshala.
Yeah, yeah. And then he went to Australia and picked up another 5 in Australia again
Yes,
as well.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And he's not played a test after that.
So you can imagine what he would do on a turning pitch.
So,
Yeah,
Very
to wrap
quickly
this
to
up,
play.
to wrap this up, what are we saying? We are saying that drop Nadeem for sure. Thumbs up for that.
Yep.
Okay, and our vote is for Kuldeep to come in for Nadeem, but most likely Kohli might go for Aksar. That can happen.
Yeah.
And we don't change the batting, and we bank on Washington as number 7, and hopefully his bowling,
Yes.
he gets more confidence and
Yes.
more of a buy-in.
Yes.
See, unless we expect a very bowling-friendly pitch, and we say that 4 bowlers will be enough, right?
See,
In that case,
assume it's going to be a similar pitch, because I don't think in 4 days the square is going to be any different. I mean, the pitches are just side by side.
In that case, Rohan, are you saying we replace Washington with a proper batsman?
Yes. So in that case, I would replace Washington with Mayank, but I would still replace Nadeem with Kuldeep. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
That's probably not something that the team management may do. They might just bring in Mayank instead of Nadeem and leave Washington as is. That is the thing which
on current form, the way Washington played, he qualifies as a pure batsman, Roman. I think there's no question about it.
And let's not forget, Washington's dad is very popular on social media, so he might just crash into Chepauk. मेरे बेटे को क्यों drop कर दिया? 85 रन का test.
No,
another
it was
one
flawless.
of those.
His first innings was flawless, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
So what were some of the good things? I mean, if we can sum up some of the good things I thought which happened was, I think, Pant's energy, and his keeping was quite decent.
His keeping was very decent, yes.
I think the young guys held fort, Pant and Washington held fort. I think the second innings of bowling was a lot better on spot. Of course, it was helped by the fact that England were anyway in that
They were attacking, yes.
Attacking mode. So it's good to get them out for less than 200. And Kohli, for all it's worth, Kohli got a 70 in the second innings. So hopefully that will kind of a little bit like what our friend Alistair Cook did in the 2012 series, in the first test that we lost. Yeah.
Definitely things looking better. I'm sure we'll have better bowling plans in the next test match. And yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers
I think
crossed.
we'll
If
go
the
to
conditions are similar, the toss becomes so much more important, right?
see. That's not in our hands. What is in our hands? Let's focus on that, and that
Yeah.
is don't
As
lose top order
fans,
wickets like the way we did this time.
nothing is in our hand.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot for
Yeah.
logging in. A fairly sort of, I would say, half disappointing, half futuristic, half confused session because we as fans and analysts are also confused, very pretty much like how the Indian management is. Hopefully,
No,
some of this confusion is sorted out and we
yeah.
see a more structured and more better approach for the Indian team. Thanks for logging in. Please do continue to like, subscribe for our channel. And you'll hear us soon at the end of the second test, hopefully with a better result. Thanks and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.